one.
Wish me luck. Tell me when y'all are good.
Oh, wait.
I'll wait aloud.
Is the dot in the speech draft?
Oh, not yet. 8,
8.
capital H, lowercase k, 8, lowercase b, lowercase o. Should be in there. Everyone good?
I am good.
You good?
Yes.
Plan: the United States ought to substantially reduce its military presence in the West Asian North Africa region by removing its nuclear forces from the insular airbase of the Republic of Turkey. Advantage point is non-proliferation. Nukes and insular are purely symbolic. Turkey doesn't have aircraft and pilots to operate them. Growing tensions for nuclear blackmail and theft by the government and non-state actors. Rolled in 2019. Spiraling relations, technical news to be seized by hostile Turkey or others, and increasing unstable region that should be moved after no longer than 16 pilots extremely low people and so can make material different. NATO would still be at hand. NATO nukes are purely symbolic. Recent comments cause fear. Giving these nukes can be attacked by AT American military use sparking ships over one thought I said to use prisoners script. Officers plotted in the coup and electricity on Corona wanted to divide opposition. Turkey sees enemies on Washington also favors US and Atlantic capacity hold. Out of Greece, a little drama on Washington thrown from Syria undermines NATO. Their nukes are more than adequate. Follow to explosive nuclear blackmail, taking weapons out of such restraint and theft is likely impossible. Security systems can be overcome. Both terrorists and Turkey have a geopolitical incentive to steal and reverse engineer the nukes. Papaloto 2019. Bombs are held hostage by Erdogan miles from Syria. Question security. There are threats from inside of the terrorist rates on state actors. Fields, man, out the fields of material bombs could only delay it out. But it's stop a reverse engineer Turkey. If it's interested in nukes, so security measures on how to decide to prevent it inside of Turkish air base. The situation to Turkey to be too unsafe to remove weapons are not going to make our relationship better. Turkish are to blame nukes and insular curse, so destabilization, friction, and inevitable instability in Turkey hides the risk of loose nukes. Oslo 23. Social, political, and economic suffocation take over. Lure is bloated, massive unemployment, overall strength attached to Putin, last term could be cultural trails, elevating wars, leaders carry out party, who are truly internal for the future, and nuclear terror caused extinction, Bianca 2020. Terrorist emerges players, nuclear conflicts rise against likely to descend for zero and has been provided motivation for WMD's efforts by terrorists to purchase nukes to continue availability, princess office opportunities, Siberian terrorism threat is real and present terrorists and WMD's momentum and nightmare scenario, and independently Turkish polo spills over and guarantees accidental arms races, clause 2019. Erdogan threatened to block walls to Baltic allies cooperating with Putin in Syria and purchase Russian defense system that could jab us off to Erdogan has turned authoritarian immigrant perils. Erdogan building his own nukes. He wants the pearls from global sour problems and electric truth leading to the Turkish moment. Lead to an arms race around Saudi Arabia is the lowest before Armageddon. Grenade member might turn on his allies to remove the nukes that is like the necessary first step and advantage choosing stability. Continued nuclear presence in Insular because the Union increased from miscalculation. Turkey is the only country where bombers have to be flown in to operate the nukes, meaning normal NATO confidence measures from Russian first strikes died in 2016. Insular picking up a drone from first strike and undermine your turn in every but Turkey host station as aircraft Turkey continues to rise pilots around US security bombs, US military stations are waiting in Turkey are Austria is not stabilized during war to visa unlike the US fighter would go undetected air traffic command drones with satellite loss. Intelligence gathering flying in American Lincoln signal to Moscow intent to use nukes aircraft could be determined as first strike dropping after this, but not to get the alliance capabilities for result stability and that caused extinction, Turner 22. Nuclear war create widespread virus, proper lines and common reduction, plummeting, produce climate change, unprecedented, even small-scale nuclear war, nuclear winter, radioactive dust, blackout, celebrating global famine, walk up, would affect, above global event would affect planet stability, sustain life between the US and Russia, would drop more than 3 times the difference between allies, local state every year, 6 cannot be included, and the plan tracks Turkey's revisionism and strengthens NATO unity. Erdogan used Peninsula as a bargaining chip and fractures NATO power production, emboldening Russia, Coast 23. Reminder, Erdogan allies can only be pushed so far, so Erdogan's right from Insular, Erdogan's holding up Sweden and Finland's membership of the system, innovation, NATO operates by consensus, standing up to the West place, well, Erdogan's base, Belgium's messaging, Russia used proof of the Western results, comment, the NATO's indiscriminate, remind Turkey that no member is in distance, long, looking for self-support, and then regional media operating on fast Turkish ready to say US operation, pursue cooperation without Insular, glooming the president for Lodge, getting in the way for cooperation, Philippines, excellent, fair minister, East Turkey would lead Russia-based forces at Insular, and Turkey can set off a domino effect. NATO coalition is key to preventing a laundry list of existential threats, Boschem 2018. Strong alliances, notably NATO instrumental in integrate power war, alliance to war when enemies take seriously promise to fight together. NATO play a major role in preserving peace, the risk of Russia or no attack, consequences of catastrophic nuclear war over. Is Turkey taking a block holding against a stable, taking enough collapse areas and terrible Japanese determined army for live over Irish all the Baltics and Ukraine, so those tensions in Japan, a war between those in Russia and those in China, sorry. The Alpha is the only option. Turkey's unreliable ally. Make a withdrawal the most effective way to keep them in check. Responsibility to condition US access to insular nukes and bolden domestic nationalism and revisionism, Code 2018. U.S. behind the vinegar policy is not yet a result triggered under my U.S. policy because eventually Obama will further influence to access into the base of the message Turkey's international release vulnerable defense to resist preservation to react without war for U.S. interest market in America go to other without reciprocal effort in successive administration discount anti-Americanism everyone comes into its conspiracy theories how reinforce no consequence and mistrust is so high dialogue is unlikely to rest to climb rather than expanding research to simply publish even policymakers to recognize flawed structural just expectations and develop alternatives instantly the basis become useful to Turkey domestic politics or information place with nationalists and groups no longer are hostile towards the U.S. and use no longer restrict to millions of Turks net access 2014 is proved to be effective at insular officials should edge and checking Turkey is key. Continued revisionism risk World War III. Sasodia 2020. Turkey is during a perfect storm will cause World War. High command is breaking up his peace with Libya, Mediterranean, Caucasus, Syria against France, UAE, Russia, Israel, Saudi Arabia, history, arbitrary power, cause World War II. Diplomacy and foreign conflicts have belligerent Turkey who is causing trouble, admits ambition to research dominance on Greece, antagonize France and the U.S. because of so organized by the possibility of armed resistance over Turkey. It's in a proxy battle with Russia. Erdogan has been trying to replace Saudis. Erdogan is to plunge into conflict to respond to all out war. Erdogan needs to return to his senses and excellent framework. The standard is maximizing expected well-being, preferred uses of partial specific to other actors and results in fingers which remains all value. Green 2015. Usual misunderstood going back to Roger Monarch, got tried to devise misinterpreted of self-additional kinds of comment, usual partiality, such as the mirror of your yard, everybody's interest is equal, matters for everybody else, the answer quality, conversation, seriously. Why do you care? You come down to the quality of experience, you say, when you go to work, you say, I need me, when you have to live to see who's cold, wrong, cold, is bad, and bad, and pleasure, and paying a good stand for resolving public disagreements is to produce the best overall experience, and non-usual ethics are impossible. Green 07. Science telling us human moral judgment, knowledge, pristine, rational, and by judgment, driven by hard moral rules, which is decision, biological, cultural, it is a like theory, coherent, moral theory, that combinate our moral truth, deontology, and every maybe something by deontology, enters the highest diagnostic with deontological consequences are against people's mere object, regarding every person's well-being, deontological, answers will be tautological, the answer to only explain anything, and skeptical scorecard. Using the government as a heuristic is better pragmatic and forces to truly investigate political structure and search ways to improve instead of using abstract solutions for concrete impacts. 2015. Resistance not limited to rejection, it is in trouble within this group recover rationality, and at the same time, it seems transforming this question over simplification, conversion, radical acceptance about universally good or bad actors for our abstract solution, political problem, governmentality, as heuristics and novel diagnosis, these foster political engagements, engagement not very await the revolution of twist power by making a play by playing with whatever other available and would require flexibility on the consequences of political choices, and adopt an strategies, contradiction, resource, maintain to involve up to selling challenges today. Core 08. A hybrid strategy policy and agile opportunity construction publishing immediately and everyone welcome to trade within institutions, building balance happening worse with dominant discourse. Cut the card of discourse. I'm ready for cross.
How does the app strengthen NATO cohesion?
Sorry,
How does
sorry,
the
can you
app
repeat that?
strengthen NATO cohesion?
Yeah, a number of warrants for this. One, we would argue that Erdogan is acting revisionist right now and doing things like cozying up to Russia and buying their missile defense systems, which are harming the idea of NATO cohesion. Which, but the AF would make it so that he can't use Interlink as a bargaining chip because he uses cutting off access to U.S. nukes in order to justify this revisionism. B is the sense of perception, i.e. that the U.S. is checking Turkey and then doesn't let his NATO allies go too far.
All right.
And three is that he uses,
question.
okay, but obviously there's no uniqueness for NATO bad because we don't say NATO doesn't exist, just that NATO exists and is weak and ineffective.
I guess, what risks do you think that NATO prevents?
Yeah, again, A, if you're going to go for a NATO bad, we say there's no uniqueness. The AF, to be clear, is not making the claim that without the plan, NATO were to collapse or not to exist. We would say NATO would still exist and still make Russia mad because it's still existing, but it's just not strong enough to deter Russia. So the only option is between ineffective NATO and an effective NATO. B is that we would say that's explained really well on our Boshep 18 card. One is that the alliance deters Russia and deters Russian encroachment and adversarial probing. And B is that NATO is a cornerstone of the American alliance system. So if NATO were to fall apart and NATO isn't as cohesive, then other allies such as South Korea, Japan, etc. wouldn't feel so confident in the U.S. and would start doing things.
What revisionist actions does Turkey do?
That's explained really well on our Sasodia 2020 card. For example, one, they completely supported Azerbaijan in its genocide against the Armenians. Two, it's stoking war in Syria right now because they are anti-Kurds and are trying to exterminate the Kurds. Yeah, that's explained really well again in our Sasodia 20 card. The card literally says, quote, Turkey is stirring up a perfect storm that will cause the Third World War, which clearly escalates and it'll increase. We have a lot of interest in the Middle East. Russia and China also have a lot of interest in the Middle East. And so wars that start there, especially involving a NATO power, can pretty quickly escalate, especially since Turkey is already in a locked in a proxy battle with Russia on 3 different fronts.
Does the plan remove troops?
Only the troops that are there to protect the nuclear weapons and manage them.
I guess who steals the nukes?
Either either terrorists or Erdogan.
Why would Russia first strike Turkey?
Not first strike Turkey, first strike the U.S. That was our Stein 2016 evidence. We basically argued that because there's a pick up and drop approach that Turkey has with its nuclear weapons, since they don't have any trained pilots in Turkey that would actually be able to fly them, every time the U.S. flies in a fighter bomb squad to Turkey, Russia could think there's a potential first strike because they're watching the base like a hawk and know from the satellites when we're flying people in, which creates user-loser pressures that prompt a Russian first strike so they don't lose their nuclear weapons because they think we're going to first strike. But we also just fly in fighter bomb squads when we're trying to like reassure Turkey.
Okay, I will send a document.
Order?
I think it's 4 off, and the first, or the second half is the convention, and the first half is the convention.
Okay. Let me grab my flows then. So, instability prolif. And you said 4 off, right?
1, 2, 3, 4, yes.
Okay.
Is everybody ready?
No, I haven't downloaded it yet. Okay, I'm ready.
The United States should adopt a policy of inducements and threat of military force to incentivize nuclear non-proliferation. The counterpoint is a game-ending move that reverses nuclear programs Meta 20. Reversal is incumbent on U.S. reward service-based serving concepts that allow states to stop programs that survive challenges, sanctions, persuade populism that accepting settlement is better than cost, dynamics underpinned by U.S. willingness to threaten force. The game-ending move restructures process into counterprolife, reinforces the utility of combined rewards and sanctions to change decision-making. Next off is topicality. The interpretation is that military presence refers to personnel, not equipment or infrastructure. It requires armed force, columns 3. If a country has military presence, it has armed forces. Presence is people, Macmillan 15. Presence, a group of people. Military presence. Military presence is defined as active military personnel, Poon 6. U.S. military presence is measured by active military personnel in the region compiled by the DoD. Forces are only personnel. It excludes tech and infrastructure. U.S. Defense Report 3. Definitions U.S. law provides a line between forces, military units, and infrastructure will preempt and requires all conditions to exist. Supreme Court of Missouri 58. And requires that both conditions exist. The word and is defined in states that are cited to demonstrate that the word may not be changed or constituted to mean or. It is so plain to admit, no doubt. Violation. The act does not withdraw people. It withdraws only nuclear forces. At best, it's extra topical, which is still bad because it creates an unpredictable limits explosion that spikes out of neg arguments. Vote negative. First is predictability. Consensus of field definition, common usage. We define the resolution's term of art. A hot dog is not the same as a warm puppy. Second is limits. No clear pipeline beyond a total number of troops. Allows infinite subset of military-related equipment infrastructure. Beginning of the topic magnifies offense because no consensus has been set. Third is ground. It changes. Changes are unrelated. The troops can be small. Thumb disadvantages and dodge core links. Next off is the states counterplan. The 50 states and relevant subnational actors, including the National Governors Association, should condition the administration of federal programs on the United States, substantially removing its nuclear forces from the Incirlik Air Base in the Republic of Turkey. It competes and solves, conditioning the plan never fiance, but results in federal adoption and aggressively expands dual sovereignty. Bloomberg 21. States and federal sovereign rebels, these cooperatives, succeed in changing the law. States refuse the program more objective. This had effect as the Fed relies on states for assistance in conjunction with state changes. The Fed became cooperative, reasserting state sovereignty, counterbalances governance failures from federal encroachment, and extinction of clause 19. Inequality, global terrorism, climate change, unless we address permanent failures, power concentration away from people. Systemic failures will never get lasting solutions. Need to return powers to the states. It competes. The United States as the federal government, most predictable. Mitchell 15. Article system in the USA from the United States. Delegated powers to the Fed identified as the United States. USA refer to states. The United States refers to federal government. Title 28 govern federal courts. Consistent use. U.S. refer to Fed. Enormous weight. Later revised with supreme law of the land. States counterplans are good. They act as a functional limit on the topic to check back against new apps and small apps which otherwise we would not have access to. Next off is topicality. Again, interpretation. Apps must reduce military presence in the entire West Asia and North Africa region. In words and phrases away, it means throughout region. From dictionary is the entirety of an area. Violation is they only remove from Turkey. You should vote negative on limits and ground. Spec explodes limits to every individual subset of country app, which moves that ground to use ground-based and perception of large withdrawals like assurance or deterrence in country-specific DAs. Predictability outweighs its we couldn't engage in the first place. Competing interpretations. Topicality is a yes or no question and it sets the best topic norms, while reasonability is arbitrary and misjudged prevention dropped and over RBIs. Being topical is burdening their adversary. Case. There is no Russian warship in 23. Likely if Russia used nukes as astronomical, should not even be considered. Putin will allow the leaders believe he might, but he's not suicidal. Putin's reference to potential nuclear war tactic, nuclear rhetoric exposes the extent to which the leader feels desperate for leverage. Russia's sources of influence are dwindling, and Russian war is not popular. Reports emerge about lack of confidence troops have in leaders. Nukes wouldn't achieve Putin's aims. Calls for warheads as tactic. Russian forces are utterly degraded. Factory NATO retaliation. You've lost the operational advantage. Argued Putin understands the devastating effect on Russia if it were to launch nuclear weapons, and it's felt by the fact that the nukes have already been in Turkey, which means that if their scenario was to happen, it would have already happened. Next is U.S.-Turkey cooperation is possible, and they're not revisionist. Ankara policy neither disrupt nor was no evidence Erdogan importing another European practices determining the West. Turkey not the one wolf, it appears to be Erdogan, Bopo, adapted to multiple ratified without delay, no opposition toward Ankara, institutional and economical ties, and create space for Turkey to join forces. No Turkish revisionism. Turkey invasion is boost global stance. Ankara interest in preventing us from presenting the power that has leverage, key player in peace, boost status. Ankara invested in preventing regional order dismay, stabilizing and critical goals. We'll skip the next cards and go on to non-proliferation. First, their Robin card says only U.S. presidents can authorize the bombs with the necessary codes. Checks are extensive and purely symbolic, takes out instability offense. In purple, 1AC Robin 19 says underground vaults. The supposed testament to the strength of the U.S.-Turkish relationship, though the basis of extensive security measures, the bombs use permissive action links, meaning their forces can only be activated using a code transmission by a U.S. president or his designated second in command. U.S. ignition of the base can rapidly sabotage them by overheating their thermal batteries. Even if these 61 were somehow seized or stolen, they would require extensive modification to convert into usable weapons. By retaliating, cutting off access to Turkey, which is conventionally located for U.S. air operation over Syria and the wider Middle East. There is no nuclear terror. Despite projections, nukes remain beyond capabilities of modern terror spheres. The knowledge intact became accessible. Non-state actors remained a dream, nor a reservoir material in blank markets waiting to be weaponized. Would not experience any close calls regarding nuclear terror. Given complexity, to expect failures, near misses to persuade successes. No attempts to construct, steal, or purchase nukes, much less struggle and deteriorate linkage. Not a problem. Pessimistic problem. We're not by some events. Their author knows their scenario is fake. 1AC Robin 19. 700 pound use is one shouldn't exaggerate. Nuclear high spaces, extensive security measures, permissive action links used only activated using code transmitted by the U.S. president designed rapidly sabotage them by overheating the batteries. B-61s are safe and sustain nuclear deterrence. Misconi 21. B-61 series incorporates safety mechanisms to prevent unauthorized PIO code. 12 digits long user is locked out. Safety devices prevent deterioration. Nuclear weapons built to resist tampering. Versatility in warfare is unmatched. Acceptance of nuclear deterrence strategy necessitates the B-61. We'll go back to the first flow. NATO is not a sustainable paper tiger. U.S. security cooperation with NATO causes brinkmanship, escalation, miscalculation while undermining European core defense. Paragraph 19. NATO paper tiger is out with defense budgets all over. It's not credible. Macedonia, Montenegro's army. 2000 retention with Russia. Baltics, Britain. European troops use broom sticks to stimulate guns. Europe has resources to defend itself. Even Russia bitches without the U.S. 500 million GDP of 10 billion and more than triple. Russia has 2 nuclear deterrence reason for European failure to feel credible military power. They rely on U.S. defense. The U.S. committing itself to fight for allies who won't fight for each other. This became increasingly clear to friendly and hostile onlookers. Invites brinkmanship, escalation, miscalculated nuclear war. Collective defense should be built on credible deterrence as long as the U.S. committed to defending Eastern Europe lacked the will and means to defend itself militarily. Weak American pressure had little effect. Americans increasingly fed up with unsustainable affairs. Only job withdrawal. Once Europe to command to collective defense, American men must safe by NATO. U.S. should withdraw ASAP. And the U.S. dominated structure of NATO guarantees entrapment. Any defense is exclusively drawn from the Cold War, after which NATO should end it. Edel Citizenship in 18. Precipitation is called small. Alliance governments must involve war, otherwise always have no reason to trust security guarantees cannot be unvarnished. To influence allies averages, there must be words of U.S. commitments as words for conducting U.S. significant treating entrapment is wholly when one ally goes to war for a partner misses entrapment, not either or. Manifest in decisions when confronting adversary, timing, resources, all forms more likely, especially when unipolarity begins blind evidence. Rampant entrapment common, especially from the Cold War. Moral hazard, hegemony, need to go to war to sustain dominance. U.S. advantage over allies, make it especially vulnerable. And EU deterrence solves every scenario better. It's key to credibility, prevents nuclear arms facing, creates regional stability. Ball 21. Europe more secure for rely on global deterrence instead of U.S. nuclear umbrella. Deterring by threatening nuclear is challenging with precedent risk. Washington say Paris certainly no. It's incredible. Solution conundrum is overwhelming popular superiority. Fool to roll the dice as capabilities improve. Adversaries respond by keeping forces on higher alert. Mark the card at low. And next off, the United States should substantially decrease its cooperation with NATO.
Cool.
Let me just mark this card really quickly. Okay. Almost done. Get my thing off. I'm just gonna set a timer and then I'm ready for CS. I'm ready.
So you read 5 off?
Yeah.
Okay, how much is decrease?
A good amount.
What does that mean?
We haven't defined it, but we think it would be a significant amount, and then we would terminate existing cooperation.
Or do you have evidence that says it would terminate?
We don't have evidence, but substantial.
So you don't have
is a
any
lot.
evidence?
I mean, we can read a definition of substantial. Like,
Yeah, okay. How much is that?
I don't know.
Okay.
A lot. I don't have a clear, like, it's exactly 8.4%, but like.
Cool. Let's talk about Let's talk about the. What did you read on case? What did you skip on case?
I skipped Sing, Petty John, Hazimi, Libby, Rumor, and Rumor again.
Okay, so you skipped everything below an EU deterrent.
Yes.
Cool. You didn't extend any other off other than the last one, right?
No other ones.
Okay. Let's talk.
Well, I mean, I changed the counterclaim text to be not federal government.
Okay. Let's talk about your first off.
Yes.
What's the net benefit?
Net benefit, we think NATO bad.
NATO bad?
Yeah.
How so?
Because it hasn't had anything to do with NATO. Like, we think that we wouldn't increase the NATO cohesion, so we would avoid the link to that.
Okay. Can you give examples under T troops, military presence? Does that mean all equipment is encountered under military presence?
We think that infrastructure is excluded.
Infrastructure?
It excludes tech and infrastructure. That's the U.S. defense.
So it excludes technology.
Yes.
Okay. So like like guns, for example. With the US, so under a troop staff, they would have to just leave all their guns behind?
No, not necessarily.
Didn't you just say you can't withdraw equipment under military presence?
Our evidence says it does not include infrastructure like
Infrastructure. Okay, so what's the
it
distinction
only
between a
includes
gun?
active military personnel.
Only includes active military personnel. Okay, it excludes weapons and things like nuclear arsenals, is what I'm guessing your argument is.
Yes.
So then, for troop staff, they have to take out all their guns and just leave them where they are? For a
Not
boat, for like a
necessarily.
naval presence staff, where they just have to leave the boats in the harbor? What is the distinction between guns and boats and nuclear weapons if those are all equipment?
I don't know what you're asking. Like,
I'm asking about what the topical version of affirmatives look. Like, what's an affirmative where you only remove people and not any technology
well,
or
we
any
think you can
equipment?
obviously take the affirmative of those people, but not like
Why?
infrastructure.
What makes it different?
What makes it different?
Mhm.
Like, I don't really understand what you're asking. I'm just confused.
Okay, that's all right. Let's talk about what ground did you lose by reading this app?
For which, like, are you asking about both T or?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I can't read like a pick out of like North Africa.
Okay. Well, T troops.
Oh, T troops.
Oh, sorry. So you want to be able to T spec is so that you could read picks. That's the ground you lose.
Well, I mean, there's other stuff too, like any arguments related to like anything that isn't Turkey.
Okay. I will take running prep starting now. That's gonna be off.
What?
As in-
Status quo, always logical option, judge it.
So condo.
Yes.
Cool. Cool. And prep. I should have 156 left. I'll send out the doc.
Okay.
Sorry, it's just right now 156. base top down, T military presence, T spec, NATO uniqueness counter plan, non-prolif counter plan, uncooperative federalism.
Sorry, it's. You
So,
said,
top down from the 1AC on case?
Yeah.
so,
No, sorry, top down from the NCO. Very sorry.
Oh, so 2-1, and then it's topicality troops, topicality spec,
Mm-hmm.
and then the NATO uniqueness counter plan. And then what was the other one?
NPT counter plan.
Okay, and then states.
Yeah.
Okay, let me get the.
You good? I'm kicking the second advantage. I'm conceding all the defense on it. First advantage. Use it or lose it means Russia perceives typical alliance bolstering measures of U.S. flying and fighter squads to insulate as preparation for a nuclear attack, prompting a first strike that goes nuclear. The Shikman comments about Ukraine doesn't take into account how use or lose pressure, short in time frames, and mean that people aren't in their right mind when they're thinking about this, thinking about these things, so they're not thinking too far ahead into the future. The Turkey region, everyone uses controlling access to insulate nukes to justify riches, embracing tension and guaranteeing nuclear great power drawn into regional conflicts. Only Czech and Turkey can get them in line and strengthen NATO cohesion, key to deterring existential sign on Russian aggression. Yes, cooperation is possible. That's our entire point. Only if we get them into line. We don't have insulate hovering over the bargaining table. And B's and D's, they can be unintentional. Even if they're trying to promote peace, they can still raise tensions in Syria or Azerbaijan that causes draw and Mr. Saudi evidence on the NATO bad debate. One, no uniqueness. Our card talks about specifically, no uniqueness. NATO is inevitable. It's only a question of effectiveness. Established 2017. NATO is where the crises remove the U.S. NATO retains to 27 states GDP of $20 trillion more troubling in the future tier manpower drops by half military equipment no longer supported with additional reservists. Russia has 2 to 20 million. No obvious candidates take the lead. The EU or Germany criticize France. High alert. The alliance not collapse. For question one short-term survivability down. Encourage adversaries to undertake aggressive action. Second is you should prefer a motion card even if you don't think NATO is important. It's key to alliance systems globally that prevent proliferation in places like South Korea. And 3 is that no EU fill in. They never says they are strong enough now or that they're strong enough now. And if they are strong enough now, then they should either be the same as NATO, which means they can trigger all the link turns, or they should solve deterrence in the status quo. And 4, NATO prevents a nuclear war. Grants 2019. The Kremlin might carry out limited nuclear strikes as it escalated, de-escalated. The Russians are serious about it. NATO, Russia, nuclear limited use. Raise the first revelation across the nuclear measure, lead to a long-lived destruction to pull back, or devalue, or pull back. This would undermine the alliances and thus deliver stability. NATO would obviate nuclear escalation and making it less likely a situation in which NATO must escalate to avoid defeat, and one in which Russia can escalate to protect its early victories. Cut the card victories. T. 1, we need A, remove U.S. troops in charge of the insulation nukes. B, panics and vacuums only for neutral states, support for NATO competition. Second, counter-interpretation of military presence include nuclear weapons, because that's his cruise. Thomas and Intel 95. Government documents and interviews determine your use register as a locational sense of mission and emission sense military presence is overseas assets not in program. This is consistent with the national military strategy presence available for U.S. interest deterring entity or deterring crisis response, and assets include weapons, ICRC Code 2. Military assets, personnel, weapons, and equipment. And preferred A's precision. None of the cards have intention to find or exclude B. Stop the U.S. nuclear weapons, the core of the topic, which makes our intervene in a stable ground in death fashion. Incentivize topic research C's over limiting their interview includes all assets currently being ground on the circuit, true, bound to national. These are guns, uniforms, boats behind in the harbor, and the E is C's infinite regrets, nonsense, and military presence, catastrophe, which make T a moving target that avoids such a clash, and D is spectral limits to close tracks that get deterrence, at process accountable security gates, and F is feasibility for interviews, so it'll default to a committee interview, sound service theory, calls itself to crowd out. Spec. Counter-interpretation, it doesn't mean throughout, Merriam-Webster and D, indicating inclusion, location, or position within limits in the lake in the summer, and H, cross-fly everything from above, and B, semantics is floor, not a ceiling. If we prove that we're predictable, then the quality debates under it are more are worth the potential semantic trade-off, and C is picks, specific actions better than unbeatable picks, use whatever research source, fairness and class, while the next clear massive time skew bias on its side. Counterplan, decrease co-op. 1 per 2, second per 2, the counterplan. 3 is a cancel-off case, and 4 is it won't terminate U.S. will provide substantial military aid, and 5 is that if there's still Article 5 and 6, the cards on case say that it's not enough. Other counterplan. 1 per 2 both, second is per 2, the counterplan. 3 is kills alliance security, shows U.S. doesn't trust and incentivized prolific secret, hiding in NATO heated cohesion scenario. 4 is cancel Russian miscount. They already have nukes, and 5 is cancel Turkish regions of great powers like Russia, China, and U.S. will get drawn in because security guarantees and oil interests. Uncovered federalism. 1 per 2 shows a link to net benefit if it's perceived as being pressure. Second per 2 counterplan, then the app shows a link to be better. Third per 2 counterplan, found six arguments. The most predictable states is 0.4 net ground, LLI and D. United States means the 50 states and any other territory, and 4, they can't solve vital without funding. Durkin 2015. President people of causing harm in the United States find resisting Fed too expensive and perception. Solving NATO cohesion, Turkish revision requires the U.S. setting a strong precedent that we don't need Turkey more than Turkey needs us, which require quick concern and punishment for Turkey, Turkish liberals, and advise on corporate federalism, exacerbates environmental destruction and warming, causes a race to the bottom. Beasley 2017. State sovereignty is not compatible with combating climate change. Look at who's so canal about the problems of for the dire consequences of leaving environmental regulations to states, variable and even nature of state buildings exacerbates the problem. Cut the cutter problem. And 6 is no spillover. Brenner 2020. The factors include the safe to prevent overreach, also include the judiciary, says SOP, state representation, federal decisions, and government councils, the people, state's ability to push back the party system, leader towards one another, kind of fails system full of redundancies. Cut the cutter redundancies.
Alright, I have 4 minutes. You did not read any theory arguments, correct?
No.
Okay. Topicality from spec, and then the second contention.
extend the interpretation that the app must defend a reduction of presence throughout West Asia and North Africa. They violate the big framing issue that means that you should instantly vote negative is that the affirmative must prove that their interpretation is semantically feasible prior to determining its pragmatic benefits. The problem with their answers is that they do not matter when they have conceded the definition of region, which specifically means the entirety of an area. Vote negative. They will extend that precision outweighs their interpretation without counter-defining the words of the resolution, justifies getting rid of the topic altogether, which would be, which does not, there's many different reasons why not being topical would be good for debate, but that does not necessarily mean that that does not necessarily mean that they are necessarily in line or predictable. Predictability is the internal link to pre-tournament prep. It controls what both sides know because the resolution was decided in advance, which means the app being outside of the resolution uniquely causes the negative to be left in the dark behind it. Limits also outweighs. The limit standard is essentially that the affirmative is able to talk about any sort of one country app, like in this round, which is able to sort of expand the negative prep burden untenably because the negative will never have time to research the number of apps that would exist. I'll give a case list here. Here's the number of apps that would exist under their interpretation. Apps like removing presence in Israel, apps like Gulf areas, apps related to specific small countries like Turkey, or apps that would do things in places like Syria and Iraq, which instantly explode the sort of negative prep burden and prevent in-depth testing and debate. They've also dropped the ground standard on this, which is specifically that when the affirmative only defends one country, that it's able to spike out of disadvantages which require large shifts from the status quo. That they say picks don't justify it insofar as potential negative abuse should never justify potential app abuse. Picks are bad. We will concede that picks are bad, but that means that the affirmative is always able to beat them because there's no answer to reading it as a disadvantage solves all of their offense. The sort of other cross-application stuff, you should be highly skeptical of sort of cross-applications being made here, especially when you do not know what they specifically want you to cross-apply, which means that it's impossible for the tuner to predict it. I'll try to answer these sort of arguments that they said on the other flow. They say precision, but our cards do have intent to define for this T. They say topic literature, this is not in context of specific one countries. They say over-limiting. We think that limits are worse because the negative is reactionary, which means neg engagement comes prior. They say limits, that does not necessarily apply to this sort of thing. They say implicit regress, that's also not related to it. Functional limits do not check because disadvantages require large shifts from it that the affirmative does not defend. Reasonability, no, use competing interpretations. Reasonability is arbitrary. There's no definition for what is debatable, how you understand that, which means that you should err towards competing interpretations. They say it incentivizes frivolous theory, but this is wrong. We think that it should be debated over a question of models, because Topicality specifically asks what the topic should look like, which means that they should have to defend their implementation of it because they do not have defense source standards. Look, they do not have a definition of region. That means that you should vote negative because they are not topical. We read a definition of region, it means it has to be all of it. Their in-definition does not matter because we have a definition of region. NATO bad. They dropped the NATO entraps the US into conflict. It's the only impact you know is 100% likely. First is stability and stability paradox. The credibility of security guarantees requires the US to be willing to go to war when it would prefer not to. It forces the US to engage in wars to maintain the alliance. Second is moral hazard. Allies engage in risk-taking when they feel they have the guarantee of security, especially in unipower alliances that are dominated by the US at low risk to other allies. That's Edelston. They say, they make this argument of how the EU would link back to it. This is wrong because of the fact that our argument is specifically related to unipolarity and how unipolarity relates to it. They have not answered this card, and I'll do the line bowling here. First, they say that NATO is inevitable. This does not mean NATO is not inevitable because we'll extend the counterplan here. The counterplan generates uniqueness because it has the United States substantially decrease its cooperation with NATO, which means that even if they're right that the US is cooperating with NATO now, that it would not. Additionally, we've conceded app internal links that the NATO credibility is low now and will inevitably collapse, which means that we sort of have uniqueness for this. Additionally, our argument is about emboldening NATO and making NATO more credible. That's our Edelston evidence. We'll do the other stuff here. They make this argument about we'll actually do the counterplan stuff. They say that it can. They say that it wouldn't terminate it. This is wrong insofar as they do not have a sort of evidence of this. We would decrease it to the amount where adversaries would not, or to where allies would feel like it's not credible, which means that it would not be enough. They say Article 5. No, we would think that a substantial reduction would include that. They say that cards like case say it's not enough. They don't have a warrant for this. Perm to both does not matter because it doesn't shield anything. Because they say NATO co-op, the app increases NATO co-op, which we can see proven counterplan stabbers makes the app immediately target. that's like really, really bad. Because it makes being neg impossible. It means that we're not able to get any arguments. The other line on the case flow proper. They say no uniqueness and that NATO is inevitable. This is wrong because the counterpoint solves this. This is really just a bunch of cards saying that NATO is good, but it does not necessarily matter insofar as it does not have a sort of reason why it was up our entrapment impact. They say that it's key to solve globally. This is also wrong because they extended this argument about how sort of alliance systems are able to maintain to deter adversaries. We think that this is bad. We think that the credibility of deterring adversaries means that other countries will be emboldened to strike back at the allies, which causes all of their impacts, like Turkey revisionism, etc. They say, no, EU fill in, we don't need to win, EU fill in. They say that NATO prevents nuclear war. This is just about Russia. If NATO prevents nuclear war, then the AF should be non-unique. They say, we'll go on to the other solvency stuff. They say that our solvency evidence, or that our no impact evidence is about Ukraine, but it specifically talks about why Russia would not be willing to go to war, which still applies. We'll extend it here. This is the Shinkman evidence. It specifically says that likelihood is low because Russia is not interested in it, and that Putin is bluffing in order to make other countries give in, which means that Putin is, for example, would use rhetoric like you should remove those nukes so I don't nuke you, but he isn't actually going to do anything. Their other impact about Turkey, revisionism, is turned because the increase in NATO makes that worse, which is the evidence of vacancy.
Cool.
How much prep do you have left?
I have 156 left.
Okay.
Starting now. Order is going to be case T.
Okay.
Counterpoint stuff will be on case because it's kind of dumb on case. Everyone good? I'm conceding that there's no impact of Russia war. That takes out NATO bad. You should hold the line. They have not named a single adversary name that was aimed at deterring other than Russia. All of their cards are clearly in the context of Russia, and they themselves say that Russia will never escalate to nuclear war, which means that NATO probing doesn't matter. The stability, instability stuff, and the moral hazard stuff, all is in the context of Russia. They've given no reason why NATO, which is about Europe, would deter any other nuclear power like Indo-Pac or China, which means that you hold the line and they have literally no impact, which means all they have is a Turkish revisionism scenario, which is basically dropped. Erdogan uses controlling access to insular nukes to justify revisionism, raising tensions and guaranteeing nuclear great power drawn to regional conflicts, i.e. China, who is increasing deals in the Middle East and who has security guarantees there, and who has oil there, all of whom care if Turkey is sort of staking these powers, and because Turkey is backed by the U.S., then that sort of goes nuclear. If that goes nuclear, they said it turns without literally giving any warrants. You should hold the line on the weighing, especially since I'm going to extend that there's no uniqueness. The counterplan, we never said that NATO will collapse, and their own counterplan fails. Our card that I read in the 1AR, the first card I read about NATO inevitable, literally says that the U.S. to withdraw, NATO still has 27 other countries, including the UK, UK and France, both of them have nuclear weapons. They don't need the US, which means that there's no reason why they have any uniqueness for NATO bad in the perfect shield to link. TDB. I'm extending the counter interpretation that in doesn't mean throughout. Our Merriam-Webster ND is really good on this. It says that indicates that in just has to be a part of the region, which means their definition of the region literally doesn't matter at all because in is just inside of the overall region, which means that they have no precision offense, which is basically what they go for. But independently, I'm extending that semantics are a floor, not a ceiling. Insofar as our definition is predictable enough, then the quality debates proceed semantics as proven by the fact that their impact to precision is predictability and limits in the quality of debates, which means that they just go straight up drops. There's no reason why our interp isn't debatable. Limits debate proper. I'm extending that picks out way. One is disclosure. The net gets pre-round prep. I only get 4 minutes after they break a new pick, which solves all of their pre-tournament offense because we have been reading this app since before this tournament. I disclosed it. Second is that generics check over specific apps. They get the deterrence disad, assurance disad, process counterpoints, and security keys. They say they rely on that these disads rely on huge links, but no, they don't because process counterpoints and security keys don't rely on that at all, which then conceded. And third is that they conceded the time skew. Small plans are starting the 1AC, not the 1AR. The 7-minute NC is more time to read offense against small laps than the 4-minute 1AR does against small picks. They said that their only answer to this was hypothetical abuse doesn't justify app abuse, but one, it's not hypothetical. They said during crosslinks that the ground they lose is picks, and B is that our point is that B is not hypothetical. It's proven empirically by what happens when people run whole res app. They read the third pick. Their second answer is that they consider that picks are bad, which takes out all their offense. They said you can just read it as a disad, but that doesn't matter because picks are more strategic, so people are going to be running them as picks rather than as disads. Good to me.
I'm not feeling well.
Oh.
Sick last night.
Totally good.